Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon and I are going to dive deep into our 3/4 awards in the NBA. The way these work are, Bryce and I will talk about who we think should win the awards of All NBA, MVP, All Rookie, All Defense, everything in between, so far through the 3/4 mark of the year. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? I know we got this to record. I know the Oscars are on tonight, but you know what hit me today? We have 1 week left of regular season college basketball. Some teams' regular seasons are over and conference tournaments are starting. We legit have, 2 more games of Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey to watch at least live. I realize we can always go back and watch film, maybe 3 with those guys, but the evaluation live is about to go away, and this has really snuck up on me a little bit.
It snuck up on me a little bit too, and that's part of the reason that I think our move on Thursday is going to be that we do like a pseudo mailbag, NBA draft, maybe some NBA stuff as well, kind of preparing us for that fact. Right. And talking through some things because we haven't talked NBA draft in a little bit here. I would argue it's been a minute, not crazy long, but we probably do need to catch up a little bit on some of the non-mock drafty NBA draft questions. I think that's the way to put it.
When you do a mock draft, you obviously only talk about 30 players in depth. We always try to talk about a few others, but obviously there's second round guys and guys moving up and down. There's been injuries since that, like all sorts of stuff. And I think it's probably a good thing to do before you get into conference play and then March Madness and just where things stand. And then you go into that. And then obviously pre-draft is when things really get cooking. But but first we got some business to attend to with awards.
So we're going to do NBA awards today. And I'm really excited to do NBA awards today because this is one of the more interesting cycles that I can remember for this. And part of it is due to the absences of who is eligible, like no Luka, no Wemby, no AD eligible. The AD and Wemby ones are new. We knew Luka wasn't going to get eligible, but that became official over the course of the last quarter of the season. Franz Wagner, for instance, not eligible. None of the Magic guys are eligible. Just point blank is what's crazy. Like none of Paulo, Franz, or Jalen at this point. Which
I think if they would have played, their record would be better, and we would be talking about them in some capacity. They would be another combination of okay, is it Paulo or Franz? I probably need to get one on All NBA. Which one is it? And then Suggs is going to have a conversation in All Defense if he plays. Listen, the Sixers, Joel has not really been in this conversation at all, but when healthy, one of the best players in the NBA, no question. He's not part of the season. So you bring up Luka, AD, Wemby, Joel Embiid is another guy that 15 months ago was averaging more than a point per minute played and was the front runner for MVP. So we're talking about real big. So not only does that rise people up where we start off here with 5th in MVP is where this conversation really starts and is difficult, but also then guys that probably wouldn't normally make All NBA this year, or to a conversation you and I had recently, guys that probably wouldn't be called top 15 players in the NBA. That's not what All NBA means, right? Because you are eliminating some of the best players, top 5, top 10, top 15, because of the games played limit.
That's dead on. It's absolutely dead on. So let's maybe just jump in and talk through MVP at this point.
Okay.
So the way we do MVP here and the way that this works in terms of how we go about doing this, 3/4 mark awards. It is what you have done at this point in the season. What you have done, not what you will do. There's one guy in particular with all NBA and with potentially fifth in MVP where I do think that could come up actually. Like we could make a projection and I think I would have him first team all NBA, honestly. But it's what you've done at this point through the season. Having said that, in terms of eligibility, if we know that you are not going to be eligible for these awards at the end of the season, for instance, Victor Wembanyama, based off of how many games he's played so far, theoretically would still be eligible for these awards, but we know that he's not playing the rest of the year.
Correct.
So there's no point in having him on these things. So that's kind of the mindset and the way to think about this is what you've done at this point in the season, but eligibility is based on if you are going to be eligible at the end of the year. And oh, by the way, Bryce, like there are dudes here who are very close to not being eligible that are on here. Like Giannis can only miss 5 more games.
Just saw that.
Can only miss 5 more games.
Yep.
Norman Powell and Trey Murphy are within like 2 and 3 if you look at them for most improved player this year. Like Draymond Green can only miss 3 more games this year for him if he's going to make all defense. There are some guys that are keeping it kind of tight up against the window here. And it's going to be really, really interesting to see how that impacts awards voting here coming down the stretch, because if Giannis suffers just like a minor ankle sprain,
yep,
I'll have to sit him for 5 games and he won't be eligible.
Yeah. The other thing I want to point out is this is not the 3/4 of the season award either. It's not from last time we did this to this time in that 20-ish game sample.
Yeah.
I had this conversation in our text with GMAC today. We were talking about Cat. Cat may not be on some of these lists if we were just judging the last 20 games. We're still judging a 60 game sample. And that's what makes it hard right now, because it is like, okay, somebody may have had a great 40 games. Maybe the last 20 weren't as great, but that doesn't completely eliminate them. Or someone may have had a tough 40 game stretch, but played incredible the last 20. Maybe a guy you were referencing a few minutes ago, but does that catapult them all the way into first team all NBA? And I think that player who hasn't been on our all NBA list in the first 2 will be today, but maybe not as high, because it's like the first 40 games still happened and we're still taking those into account.
That's right. Okay. So 5-1 MVP, and number 5 at MVP is just like a fascinating.
It's incredible
vote here.
I don't like it.
Who do you have at number 5?
I went Donovan Mitchell and I don't love it.
Sure. I have Mitchell at 6 for what it's worth.
Yes.
So I don't hate this.
My guess is we flip who we have at 5. I won't spoil that right now. I didn't put him at 5 initially. I went ahead and moved it. Listen, I know even within Cavs people, I feel like there's this Donovan Mitchell versus Darius Garland. I watch the Cavs and I think Donovan Mitchell is the engine of that offense, of that team. I realize there's a little bit of like recency with what he did to the Celtics the other night, but just in general, every time I turn on a Cavs game, I walk away saying Donovan Mitchell is the best player on this team. They are if not one of the best teams in the NBA. And he's been really good in terms of 46, 40, 82, rebounds a little bit, creates a little bit, defensively neutral a little bit more. Like he can do some stuff on the defensive end. I went with Donovan Mitchell here. I would legitimately listen to a multitude of other names, though.
So the reason that we know Donovan Mitchell is the Cavs' best player is that he gets treated like he's the best player from the opposing teams.
So this is fun. I'm glad you went here, because watching the Celtics the other night, I said, who is Derek White guarding right now? And it was Donovan Mitchell. It was not Darius Garland.
Correct. Because they are most worried about him getting loose. And that's fine. Like, that's okay. It's totally good. We can just say that, and we don't have to be like beholden to the numbers. Another piece of this, by the way, for me is that, and we'll talk about Darius when it comes to all NBA, like Darius is great against, I don't know, like 27 teams in the league. He struggles against a few teams because of his size defensively, like the Celtics. He is their least valuable player for me against the Celtics in that matchup. And that's okay. Like, he's still a great player. But of their 4 stars, like, he's the one that struggles the most to me because they attack him pretty relentlessly.
Yep.
And how do you weigh that versus weighing, any other multitude of factors? I actually think Donovan Mitchell does a better job defensively on Tatum than what a lot of guys do. He's really good at getting underneath Tatum and making his life kind of harder to get to his spots. So combining both the offense and the defense, to me, I would say that Mitchell is their best player. Yep. And I have no problem with Mitchell at 5. I have Mitchell at 6. It's 6 of one, half dozen of another. I do think, for what it's worth, there are clear names at 5 and 6 right now for me.
So I will say, for me personally, I debated between him and another name. I'm just saying, I think for other people, they would include others as well. And I would listen to it because I'm not so steadfast in these two. The other name I have, I think, I would have to go through it. I haven't done it. I think he's probably the only player with the distinction in the NBA of being his team's best defensive player and his team's best offensive player right now. And I don't know if anybody else has that. But that might not even be the same name for you. And so, to your point, we may not even be talking about the same guys.
Well, Giannis is the guy. Giannis is the best defensive player and offensive.
Oh, okay. Yep. There you go. So that's the other name. There you go.
Yep. That'd be the other name. But the name here is Jaren Jackson.
Okay. So we're talking about the same person. So yes.
Yeah. So I have Jaren Jackson right now at 5th.
Sure.
And to me, a big reason for that is that Jaren Jackson's averaging 23 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. Doesn't look, like MVP-ish numbers to me, right? Part of this is that, Luka's gone, Wemby's gone, AD's gone. We have a number of guys here who are not eligible for these awards. But Jaren Jackson is also, for me, because Wemby is gone, spoiler alert, the defensive player of the year so far this year. Yeah. So you combine having the best defensive player in the NBA with a guy that is a mismatched nightmare on offense now, is averaging 23 points, shooting 50, 37, 77 from the field. That's a really, really great season that I think has gone way under the radar. And oh, by the way, the Memphis Grizzlies to this point are quite good. They're sitting here, basically in a dead heat with the Nuggets and Lakers, and I guess the Rockets to some extent, but they're a game and a half behind second. But the Grizzlies, Lakers, and Nuggets are in basically a dead heat right now for the 2nd seed. And a big reason for why I will have LeBron very high. I have LeBron at 7 right now, for what it's worth, which is crazy given how he started the season defensively. But I have Jaren at 5 because I think he's been a little bit more consistent throughout the year on both ends than LeBron at the end of the day. He has been spectacular to me in leading this Grizzlies team. And oh, by the way, as well, Jaren Jackson has played 58 games this year. He's been he and Jalen Wells have been the 2 constants for the Memphis Grizzlies. Those 2 guys have missed 2 games combined this year for that team. And they've had a lot of, ins and outs of the lineup, right? Desmond Bane has missed 12 games and, John Morant has missed 23 games. Another guy that's not eligible here, by the way. Santi Aldama has missed 8 games. Luke Kennard's missed 13 games. They traded Marcus Smart and Jake LaRavia. Zach Edey has missed 14 games.
GG missed the whole start of the season.
Vince Williams missed the whole start of the season.
Vince.
There's just a lot of dudes that really, really have been in and out of that group. So Jaren Jackson being the constant of this group, leading them to 38 wins 2/3 of the way through the season, is a really, really impressive thing to me. And, it's not to take anything away from LeBron, Donovan Mitchell or anything, but I think that his ability to play on both ends has really, really made the Memphis Grizzlies stable and able to continue to compete at the highest level.
I'm in. I initially, when I just first did it, I had him there. I moved it the other day. I may be he had 45 the other night too. So I probably, I don't know that it's just a bias thing. Let's play a real quick game. This is per 36 minutes, Sam. Who averages more points per 36 minutes? Jaren Jackson Jr. or Donovan Mitchell?
I would have guessed Donovan.
Donovan by 0.1 points per 36 minutes. How about Jaren Jackson Jr. versus Anthony Edwards?
I would guess Ant by a little bit.
Jaren Jackson Jr. by 1 point per 36 minutes. How about Jaren Jackson Jr. versus Jason Tatum?
I would definitely have guessed Tatum.
Jaren Jackson Jr. by 1.5 points per 36. The only people we're about to talk to that average more points per 36 minutes than Jaren Jackson Jr. are SGA, Giannis, Jokic, and Donovan Mitchell by 0.1 points per 36 minutes. I think
amazing.
The reason it's important is because we know how good he is defensively, which you've already highlighted just a little bit. The offensive growth, the two-way play is unbelievable from Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah. The one thing that I will say on that, though, the per 36 numbers, is that Jaren does sometimes take himself off the court with foul trouble.
We'll talk
and I
about
think that is a negative more than a positive, honestly.
Sure. Yep.
But part of it is because he's playing so hard on defense all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is really, really difficult. That's a really, really hard job to be the best defender in the league and also be like a top, 10 scorer in the NBA on a permanent basis. It's pretty wild how impressive he has been.
Yes, I agree. He is number 6 for me. No question, for what it's worth.
Yeah. And now for what it's worth, we'll talk about LeBron later. If you made me bet, I would bet you that LeBron ends up in this spot at the end of the year.
Sure.
Because of the way that they're playing. And I think that they're probably the favorite right now to end up at the number 2 seed. Okay. Yeah. Now we have the top 4. We all know that the top 4 in some order is Jason Tatum, Shea, Giannis, and Jokic. Who do you have at 4?
I still have Tatum.
Okay. I have Giannis at 4. So this is fun.
Okay.
So we'll talk about Tatum versus Giannis here. You give me the Tatum pitch.
Well, listen,
or the Tatum pitch at 4.
Yeah. My thing is with him, I do think he goes underrated in terms of just his all around value to the Boston Celtics in terms of rebounding the basketball, his passing, even things he does on the defensive end. I think all of that is really, really special with Tatum, even beyond the shot making that we see. So I think like this has been the top 4 all year. I don't think there's like tunnel vision or anything like that from people who continue to have this as the top 4. I don't know that anybody's done anything to crack the top 4. And I don't know any of these guys.
I don't think so.
I don't think any of these guys have done anything to be like, oh, they're not deserving of it. Why? The thing with him and Giannis, I think my one argument would just be the minutes played, the games played, right? Between the two, in terms of you highlighted Giannis is kind of borderline here, whether he ends up eligible for this stuff, where Tatum has played 58 games. I still just think, and you brought it up earlier whenever I brought up the Jaren Jackson Jr., Giannis is unequivocally the best offensive player on that team and the best defensive player on that team. And maybe that defensive impact is enough of a separation for me between Giannis and Tatum, even though Tatum does some things offensively that Giannis just can't with some of the shooting and all of that.
On a permanent basis, I would have Giannis 3rd. It really is the difference for me in games played. Like,
sure,
Tatum has played 11 more games than Giannis this year. That's a substantial amount. Like, he has played 500 more minutes than Giannis this year. And just being available does really matter, in my opinion. Like, that availability for that extra 500 minutes has helped the Boston Celtics be a better team than the Milwaukee Bucks this year, in my opinion.
Real quick, Giannis will have played the least amount of minutes of any player we talk about probably till we get to most improved, maybe rookie of the year. Like, of these guys, he's played the least amount. Well, maybe some defensive guys, but in this conversation,
Kevin Durant is pretty close. I think Kevin has actually played a bit fewer, or no, he's played a little bit more. It's close.
Actually Steph is the next closest actually in terms of minutes. So just to your points, he's played the least of the names we're about to discuss.
Yeah. So that's why I have him 4th. If it was a like pure per minute, like that you're on the court, I think Giannis is a more effective basketball player right now than Jason Tatum. But Tatum has played 500 more minutes than Giannis, and that is a big jump to me. Like that, playing 10 more games than somebody, that's literally like he has played like 1.33 seasons compared to Giannis's one at
Sure.
this point. That's a big jump in my opinion. Personally, if you want to have it, if you want to do it different, I completely understand it. But I think we've like kind of underrated Tatum's year on some level. He's averaging 27 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, shooting 46, 36, 80. They have also dealt with like a lot of guys coming in and out of the lineup, and they're still sitting here at 42 and 18. Like Jaylen Brown has missed 10 games. Drew Holiday's missed 13 games. Porzingis has missed half the year. Horford's missed 13 games as they've tried to like get him some rest here and there. It feels like he is, again, the one constant that is always available. I also think we underrate him defensively.
Yeah.
He is not on my all defense teams. He is an honorable mention for me, all defense wise, because he's so good in help defense. He's so good at being able to consistently impact the game off of the ball defensively. And he's quite good on the ball defensively. He's not like amazing on the ball. He's a good oddball defender as well.
Yeah, I think what I've learned to appreciate more with Tatum as I watch more games, and you know, I really just got into this level of stuff last season whenever I joined Game Theory, is just his all-around impact. And I think he's grown with some of that. It wasn't just stuff that I was missing. I think he's continued to improve and get better. But as I mentioned, the rebounding, the passing and creation, and I do like the defense is impressive. And I think when we get to the all defense conversation, I think one thing in general, not solely, but in general, was I kind of realized I value versatility of defenders, either defenders that are good on and off the ball, or defenders that are causing disruption, but also being solid and, you know, like those type of things, not just good at one specific thing, like not just a really good drop coverage big or something like that. I don't know if that's what NBA teams value. Each team's probably going to be a little bit different, but Tatum does have that, to your point.
Yeah. Okay. Giannis now. Giannis has been just as unbelievable this season to me. He is averaging 31 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, shooting 60% from the field. Like, again, another guy that we just take for granted. I feel like his true shooting percentage, it's 8% above league average, despite the fact that he is the number one option every single night for the Milwaukee Bucks. He is the most dominant offensive force outside of Jokic in the NBA. He is capable of getting downhill and getting to his shot. He's added to his game this year with that little mid-range jumper. Yep. I think that the decision-making, honestly, has been a little bit better this season than what it's been in the past for him, because he doesn't have to just like recklessly drive all of the time, because he's comfortable like stopping in that, 15 to 20 foot range now. He's not as like downhill and like can get the blinders from time to time. I think that's why you see the turnover rate down to its lowest level since 2022 for Giannis. Giannis has been unbelievable. If you want to have Giannis third, I completely get it. I have no beef with any pick along those lines. I just, at the end of the day, like he's played 47 and, 500 minutes less than Tatum. And I think Tatum's been unbelievable this year too.
I think that's fair. I don't know that I took that into account maybe as much as I should have, or, I essentially was just like, okay, what guys aren't eligible, right? Like, and I put in 45 for my number. And to your point, Wemby's over 45, but I know Wemby's not going to make it. I'm glad you brought up the mid-range jumper. I watched games this year where it's just like, especially when he can dribble into it. And I'm interested if there's a way for teams to take this away. Like if they pick up on this and it's like, okay, we'll let you shoot the fadeaway. We'll let you shoot the catch and shoot, but we're not going to let you dribble from 22 feet into a 16 footer just comfortably. Like we're going to stun at you or do something to take that away. Cause he looks very comfortable and confident when he can do that. I also don't think he gets enough credit for like the nuance of his drives, like Euro step, spin moves, through contact, scoop, quick finishes, all of that. I know he draws foul. I know sometimes it is just like downhill through contact and people don't love it, but there is nuance with his drives as well. And again, been a really good defender also for a team that has snuck up into the top 10 in defensive rating at this point.
100%. Yeah, I very strongly considered Giannis for all defense.
He's my first name off the top 10 is what he
Yeah.
ended up for me. So
Yeah, he has been absolutely fantastic on that end this season too. Look, like there's only so many plaudits you can give to Giannis, in my opinion. Like he's an all-time great. He's going to be a top 20 player of all time. He's right in the prime of his career. He is incredible. He is absolutely unbelievable at basketball. Giannis has been in the top 4 of MVP for each of the last 6 years of his career. And this year will be the 7th, assuming that he hits the game's eligibility, which is the only real question remaining at this point, is if he hits the game's eligibility. He's either going to finish 3rd or 4th in MVP, and it's going to be well deserved. And I don't have anything else to say about Giannis. He's been incredible.
yeah, that's an amazing run. I was looking how LeBron did it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 times, 12 years in a row. So
it's incredible.
Yeah,
LeBron is a total joke.
We'll talk about him.
So Shea and Jokic here
Yep.
are the top 2. Which direction did you go?
I stayed with Jokic. I've stayed with Jokic. What it comes down to me, Sam, and this isn't like high level. I just think he's the best player in the world. I just do.
I think he is too.
And now that they've won some games, I think it's a little bit easier. Obviously, they're still way behind the Thunder. I get it. I understand all of that. I love SGA. I've wanted to so many of these to come on and make the SGA argument, and I just can't do it in good faith, even though I think it's very much like it is a debate. Like SGA deserves to be where he's at. It's just for me, I think Jokic is the best basketball player in the world. And because of that, if it's a tiebreaker or whatever, that's what I believe, because the individual counting numbers are silly for both.
I really think this might be the best offensive season I've ever seen from Jokic. Like, I can't even begin to fathom how good he has been on offense this year. 16% above league average in terms of true shooting. He is averaging 29, 13, and 10.5, shooting 58, 44, 82. I kind of assumed at some point that the shooting would tail just slightly. It has a little bit. It was at like, what was it, like 47
but
the last time we did this?
Yeah.
It's now at 44. I mean, he's just a monster. He is so good across the board. He is unbelievable on offense. The way that he dictates the game, he is the most, to me, he could score every time down the court if he wants to.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, he could.
I've seen games where it's just like, okay, I'm not going to score tonight. I don't need to. And it's like, I'm just going to go pass a lot and be really good doing that. And just watching him pick apart teams with that. And, it's tough for me because it's like, do you give all of these Nuggets players credit for being elite off the ball cutters? Or have they become elite off the ball cutters because they play with Nikola Jokic? And when you play with somebody like that, you either figure it out or you don't play. And so, like, I love giving Christian Brown, and we'll talk about him later when most approved, at least for me, I love giving him credit for being an elite off the ball cutter, but there is a little bit of like, guys are going to become that when you play with a guy that processes and again, I always like to bring this up with Jokic. I think I'm probably higher. I don't think he's like some like defensive player or whatever. I love his hand activity. I think young bigs could learn from watching Nikola Jokic's hand activity. I'm not saying he's always in a stance. I'm not always saying that he's like playing super hard, but if you watch his hand activity and his understanding, okay, the roll man's here, the ball handler's here. If I put my hand here, he can't make that pass or I'm going to get a deflection. I always love watching the way he like maps the floor defensively as well.
I will say, we have hit that stretch of the season that often happens around this time of the year for Jokic.
Yeah.
Where I don't want to say that like he completely turns it off on defense because that's unfair.
Oh, there's some possessions.
There are some possessions that are pretty rough for Jokic on defense.
Completely
where
fair.
like he will just choose not to close out. He will say, okay, I'm just not going to make a second effort on this play. because I need to keep myself fresh for the playoffs. And that's a real factor. And Shea doesn't do that. Like I think Shea is a little bit overrated on defense by people who have him like as an all defense guy. I don't quite have him there. I think he's a really, really good defender. I think that he plays his role at a very high level, but like the effort is always there for Shea. Like you never have to worry about that. Right.
Yeah, I agree.
I have them basically 1A, 1B. I went slightly with Jokic over Shea this time. I think that we are somehow, in some way, taking for granted the fact that this guy is averaging almost a 30-point triple-double on 50, 40, 84, or whatever it is. That's impossible. That is breaking basketball in a way that like I have never seen it broken on offense. To the level to which the defense would have to be you'd have to be, to me, like a top 10 defender in the league. And I love Shea on that end. I just don't have him there. In addition to being what Shea is as a scorer in the league.
Yeah.
And I don't think Shea is far off of that, which is why I have them like 1A, 1B. And I think this thing is wide open down the stretch.
Yeah.
I think that this thing could go any direction in terms of like who wins MVP down the stretch. I am guessing at some point that Kendrick Perkins will make a case for LeBron to win MVP down the stretch, because that will happen. But Jokic and Shea, to me, are the two very clear picks here.
Yeah.
If you want to go Shea because of the defense and because of what he's done, and we should absolutely start talking about Shea and why he's been so good this year. I have no case against you, really. It's just that the case for Jokic for me is that I have never seen somebody dominate a game offensively at this level in my life.
Yeah. I feel like people are going to take this. When I watch Jokic, I watch him and I say, that's the best player in the game. When I watch SGA, I watch and go, man, this is one of the best players in the game.
When
I don't watch him necessarily.
When I watch Jokic, I say that is the best offensive player that I've seen play basketball.
That's crazy.
At this, there's a case for that right now.
Yep.
Like LeBron's unbelievable. And I don't mean to discredit LeBron in any way, shape, or form. LeBron at his peak is the only other guy where I would really truly make this case for, right? Like LeBron at his peak was, something like 27, 8-8, 38-7, or, he had a season with the Lakers where he was 38-6. He had another season with the Lakers where he was 25-8-10 and led the league in assists that year, right? LeBron is unbelievable. Stephen Curry is another example of a guy that just completely broke the game basketball wise on offense, right? With the way that he spaced the court. Steve Nash is another guy that's been unbelievable, incredible. I don't mean to take anything away from those guys, but the way that Jokic utterly controls the game from the perimeter, from the mid post, from the block, wherever he wants to do it, he can control the game in transition, from any spot on the court. He can control the game. LeBron could do that too, by the way. I'm not saying that LeBron couldn't do that, but it just feels different when I watch Jokic do it.
Yeah, I agree. SGA, incredible. I think the thing I love watching with him offensively is I'm on this kick right now with NBA offensive players and the bump they give defenders to create space and then what they do with that space. So I love watching a game and watching defenders either that can hold up against that bump or an offensive player that gives that bump into the step back, into a pull up, into attacking that space, into a shot fake, whatever. SGA has all of that stuff. And he's not a guy that just stands out physically, right? A lot of the guys we've talked about, Tatum has these unbelievable shoulders and Giannis is just a freak, right? He's the Greek freak for a reason. Even Jokic, not super athletic, but he is a monster that you cannot move and that can move you. SGA, mountain of a man. SGA doesn't look like that, but his practical play strength and balance impresses me every time I watch him, because he will bump you and then he'll hit the step back, or he'll attack you off of it, or he's got a little bit of DeMar DeRozan where he'll give you these shot fakes and stuff like that. Like, he has taken over the best mid-range game in the NBA for me. And what's crazy is I was looking at his drive numbers in a recent watch. He's good going both directions. Which way do you force him, right? Like, do you force him to your right, to his left? Doesn't matter, because he's good going both. And then to your point, I think it'd be a fun conversation, like, how valuable is that defensive role? But he's elite at it. He's elite at that role. The role he has within that infrastructure of the Thunder defense, he is really, really good at it. And so I do want to give him credit for that. Even though I don't think he's the most impactful Thunder defender, he's still an important cog on one of the best defensive teams we've seen in this league.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Shai is also, to me, like the best primary, I have to go get you a bucket right now shot creator among guards in the league. He is the guy, like, if I needed somebody to break down a defender one-on-one, get me a bucket, that is the guy I would pick.
Him versus, it would be him or a healthy Luka, right? Like, is that the conversation you think? Is that even a conversation for you?
If it's purely about that player getting me a bucket, I think Shai is ahead of Luka in that regard. If it's about making the right decision and like kicking out and passing, I think there's a case for Luka for sure there, because Luka's ability to kick out and make the right decision and read the court is probably a little bit better than Shai's.
Manipulate defenders. Sure. I think I agree with that. I think so.
But I think Shai is just I think he's a better shooter at the end of the day than what Luka is. Shai is a very real off-ball defender. Like, he is extremely capable of rotating down and blocking shots. He's very good at closing out and getting blocked shots. He is excellent at shooting passing lanes. He transitions defense to offense at a super high level. He plays at a level that I've rarely seen guards hit, honestly. And I think that there is a absolute real chance that Shai wins MVP this year based on the final 20 games of the year. Look, I have no, if you want to pick Shai at MVP, I have no beef with you. Like, I truly can't make an argument against Shai. He is, again, to me, if I had to get one bucket from one guy at the end of a game, it'd be him. But the way that Jokic dominates the game, every single like second of it that he's on the court, is just so different to me. It's unbelievable. He is a remarkable player. And look, like, Shai gets to the line a ton. Shai is a guy that consistently gets paint touches in a way that very few other players do in the league. He is an unbelievable 3-level scorer, across which, again, like, that's the other thing too with this. Shai's ability to finish at the basket, his ability to get to the mid-range shot, the improved ability to knock down threes at volume. Like, he is taking his highest percentage of shots from behind the arc this year and making them at a 37% clip. He is making 6 threes a game at a 37% clip. That's a massive jump for where he's been previously. I still think there's a massive difference between the two offensively in terms of the way that they impact the game. I just do.
Just real quick, again, I don't know why, but I kind of stumbled on per 36 for this one. For whatever reason, he averages the most points at 34. You gave the shooting percentages, over 50% from the field, gets to the line almost 10 times per 36, 5.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists. He actually averages the most stocks per 36 of anybody we're going to talk about other than Jaren Jackson Jr. And so to the defensive playmaking conversation, that's really, really impressive. And it shows out in the actual numbers.
But here's the thing on defense. He is allowed to do that by the fact that they have Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein behind him. And they have Lou Dort and J-Dub and Cason Wallace and Alex Caruso in front of him, guarding the best players on the opposing team.
Yep.
Like, that is a big difference. Shai has like the easiest, I would argue, defensive responsibility on that team, and he excels at it, and he is great at it in help defense. And his ability to fly around the court, use his length, use his anticipation, is part of what makes their defense so good. it is also slightly easier than what the other guys are tasked with doing, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree with all of that.
So I've Jokic at 1A. I've Shea at 1B. Honestly, if you want to have them be co-MVPs, I don't really care.
For what it's worth,
that's a completely rational thing to me. If you want to have them be co-MVPs,
I think we're in the minorities here. For one, Bontips, whatever straw poll thing he does, SGA was leading by like a 21st place vote margin. I think that was a couple weeks ago now. I think
honestly not that big.
No,
like for those straw polls, that's like pretty small.
It was 100 votes. No, it what maybe it was 30. I think it was 30. But anyway, I just think SGA is going to win unless I think what gets Jokic close. I think what people are going to hold on to is the difference between the Thunder and the Nuggets, even though the Nuggets has closed that gap in terms of being second in the West. But to your point, the final 20 games mattering, if Denver gets it to say 5 games, I think that really plays into Jokic's hands. Obviously, if they lose a few games and let's say they end up 4th or 5th, where they're only a game and a half up, I think that's going to ultimately, I think people will use that as their tiebreaker. And I'm not saying people are wrong. I listen, as hard as this is for me to do, who am I to judge somebody else's process? I may disagree with you, but I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. So I just could see that being where people go and how they ultimately justify breaking the tie. And maybe it's warranted. Maybe it is justified doing it that way. I think SGA is going to win barring something crazy here.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, let's finish out all NBA.
Okay.
But first, PrizePicks is the best place to get real money, sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. We love PrizePicks here at Game Theory because of how easy they make it to get real money sports action. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. And when my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. If you think that Stephen Curry is going to get more than 5 threes this week, if you think that, Nikola Jokic is going to get more than 13 assists in a game, you make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use the code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use the code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Okay. So second team all NBA, you would have Jaren, I would have Donovan Mitchell.
Yep.
I have LeBron next.
I don't have him next, but I have him on second team.
LeBron is averaging 25, 8.6 and 8.1, shooting 52, 40, 76. The big reason why I have LeBron next is that the level he has hit defensively, he was bad for the first third of the season on defense. He has been like all defense-ish caliber, maybe just like a step below that over the course of the last 20 games, 15 games, whatever it's been. The Lakers have the best defense in the league over the course of the last 15 games. He's been a huge part of that. He has been unbelievable over the course of this last little run of games. I think we had him at off of the all NBA group last time. He has been so good over this run here, leading the Lakers to what I believe is currently the 3 seed, if I remember correctly, but like a half game out of the 2 seed.
Yep.
That like he has just absolutely leapfrogged these players into this spot, and deservingly so, in my opinion.
So I struggled with this a little bit. I 100% think he deserves to be on all NBA at this point. What I'm struggling with is this is a full season award. And for now, this is a 60 game award. And I think at the end of the year, I'll feel better about it than I do right now, because then you'll have a larger sample of what I assume is really good energy on the defensive end. Like I even went back and read notes from an early January game. And like, I'm kind of crushing his defense in an early January game, which would have been probably right before we did the second or somewhere around there. And so that's where I'm struggling right now. The offense has been insane, But what I ultimately landed on was we can't be giving the Lakers credit for what they're doing defensively. Like, he has to be a part of that. He can't be out there and be the only guy, because it's not like there's a bunch of other crazy big name defenders, right? We're not going to name a Laker to our all defense team. And so he has to at least be a cog in what they're doing on the defensive end. So ultimately, I felt more comfortable with it. I did at least want to acknowledge that he didn't end up on our first one or our second one. So jumping him all the way to second team is a huge acknowledgement of what he's done over the last 20 games. And we'll see how he finishes off the year. To your point, I think this is who you're referencing, like, could maybe getting into that number 5 conversation, or shoot, Sam, it may be number 4 if Giannis, like you said, rolls an ankle and he ends up not eligible.
Yeah, no, if you made me bet right now, LeBron would be first team All NBA at the end of the year. With the way he's playing and the trajectory that the Lakers are on, and with how dominant they have been since acquiring Luka, I would bet you that he ends up on that spot.
Unbelievable.
But as of right now, I think 7th is the right spot.
Yep.
Okay.
I had him at 9th for what it's worth. I tend to be slower with these things, and I'm comfortable with that. So,
okay. 2 Knicks here for me. I have both Jalen Brunson and Karl Towns on second team All NBA. Do you have both of them or one?
I have Brunson.
You have just Brunson. Okay. Explain to me. I have just Brunson.
I have Cat on third team. I do think that, you just look over this stretch, and I had him on third team last time as well. Maybe right there, maybe right at second team at the end of second team. Listen, I have been steadfast in this, and I know GMAC kind of give me crap the last time, and he had a fun exchange with me today in the chat. I think Brunson is the engine, and I kind of have a soft spot for the engines of teams, and so I have been steadfast that Jalen Brunson is the best, most important, whatever player on the Knicks. And so to me, Brunson on second team was an easy call. I had him at 7. I dropped Cat a little bit just because I don't think the stretch recently has been as good. And there are some season-long defensive numbers that are really, really bad. And I'm not saying that every player we're going to talk about is good on the defensive end, but I think everybody in my top 15 is at least neutral to borderline good. And so I'm not trying to disparage Cat. I felt like
for what it's worth, I would argue Brunson is not neutral to
okay.
Borderline good.
Fair point. That is a fair point. So there would be the counter to my argument. I just think Brunson drives that offense.
So look, I've been on that boat the whole year. If you look at his last 20 games, so the sample of the season that you're talking about here, Brunson is averaging 28 points, 7 assists, shooting 51, 42, 82 with a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio.
He's good at basketball.
Yeah, Jalen Brunson, really good at basketball. Brunson's been unbelievable this year. Very well deserving of second team All NBA to me. Just has been a monster. His ability to get to his shot whenever he wants, his shoulder usage, his ability to use his feet. He just finds his areas of the court at such a high level. And I think that having Towns has been a big reason why that has made his life easier, right? Sure. Towns this year is averaging 25, 13, and 3, shooting 53, 43, 84, and has been a total monster on the offensive end. He's had a monster game. What was that against Atlanta in overtime where he dropped like 44 last week? It was insane watching him play. He's been just like a total stud to me. Yeah. The entirety of the season. The combo of these two is why the Knicks are, in that mix for being the 4th best team in the entire NBA so far. Despite the fact that I would argue they haven't gotten the best out of Mikal Bridges this season. It's been roller coastery, maybe is the way to put it. OG Anunoby has missed some time here and there, and it feels like he's been really good this year. I don't mean to take shots at Anunoby, but like there are times where it feels like he's trying to find his place a little bit more in the offense. Josh Hart's obviously been immaculate this season. I have no notes on Josh Hart. He's been great, but it does feel like these two are the driving players for this group right now to be the 4th best team in the league.
Yeah, they've both been incredible on the offensive end. I would argue that like Bridges, Anobi, and Hart have been like everything you would want them to be on the offensive end. And we don't need this to turn into a Knicks segment. I think where you would want those guys to be better, or at least their impact to be better and more felt, is on the defensive end, and I don't know, maybe we'll get to the playoffs and it's just like, no, Brunson and Cat are so bad defensively that they can't even make up for that. But to me, that was the design of the team. So I don't want to get us sidetracked there. I think Brunson's been incredible. Again, I have a soft spot. If you're the driving force of your offense, I will say, like, I had a very easy time with the first 13 names in terms of these are the 13 guys, and Cat was definitely one of those names. So it's not like I'm like, I think sometimes it's like, oh, how can he not be second team? It's like, do you understand how like
it's razor thin
it is from second team to third team is literally one spot, like 10 to 11, and they're all the same tier. So Cat was very much a name that's like, he's absolutely going to be on my list. Maybe I docked him too much for the last 20 games for the defense, whatever. But that's where he ended up for me. So
one thing just worth noting here, among the teams in the top 10 currently of the league, do you know who the two teams are that have the worst winning percentage against top 10 teams in the league are? Top 10 teams in terms of net rating.
So the Knicks are one, I assume.
They are. They are 6-11 against teams with a top 10 net rating in the league. And, unsurprisingly, given their struggles against like the best teams in the league, where they're giving up 123 points per 100 possessions, the net rating has not been great there either. Do you know who the second team is, though?
Is it the Lakers?
It is the Nuggets,
Nuggets.
Okay. The Lakers this year are 8-9.
Okay.
Against teams with a top 10 net rating. They're actually sixth best in the league this year in terms of net rating against top 10 teams. It is Cleveland, Oklahoma City, Boston, obviously head and shoulders above the pack in this regard. And then Houston and Minnesota are the only other two teams in the league with a top 10 or with a positive net rating against top 10 teams.
I knew Houston was one. I saw this the other day. Somebody had tweeted it out. For some reason, I thought the LA wasn't on the list, but obviously I'm misremembering. Yeah. But I knew Houston was on the list because that name caught me the most.
Okay, to finish mine out, we'll finish with a name that I assume you have on yours. I have Cade Cunningham, second team All-NBA right now.
Hey, I thought we were going to have an argument over this one. I thought this was the award where I was going to be the homer, because I don't think I am in the other ones where Pistons players show up. I have him as my 10th guy, but
I do too.
I put him there, and then as I tried to filter and go back, I did this 3 days ago, so then I would have time to like sleep on it, think about it, whatever. I just was never able to move him off. Like, I didn't think I could justify what he's done this season, him not being above some of these other names.
They are 34-27, Bryce.
I'll do this exercise again. You don't have to do it. Listeners, tell me the second best player on the Detroit Pistons. And radio silence will be there for everybody. Now, I will say Malik Beasley has been unbelievable, but if Malik Beasley having to shoot 43% from three is your second best player on offense, well, I mean, Asar is probably their all-around best player at this point. But anyway, that's always my point with Cade.
Cade is averaging 25, 6 and 9, shooting 46, 36, 85 now. Like, his true shooting percentage, I think, has hit league average now at this point. If it's not, it's like it's within like a couple percentage points, while being responsible for creating everything. Since Jaden Ivey went out. Like, I know that Dennis Schroeder is there now, but I mean, if you've watched the Pistons, Schroeder hasn't exactly been good for the Pistons to this point. So Cade is the guy that has to do literally everything for them on the court when they're out there. He's gotten better defensively this season. He's no longer like a total sieve on that end. He creates a massive, massive, massive amount of offense for them. And again, they are 7 games over 500. Like, I think that I took their win total over this year, assuming the Cade would like play. I never would have guessed that they would be at 34-27 3/4 of the way through the year.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it for me as well. This team won 14 games last year. Cade has been through a lot in his career in terms of, second year injury, all of that. I know this is like a this season thing, but I'm taking into account the fact that the first 3 years of this player's career was a total shit show. And then he's come out this season. And just because there's competence, he has really quality coaching, competent roster that makes sense around him. Now we're seeing him just go crazy and lead his team right now as things sit. They are closer to being the 4 seed than Sam. They're closer to being the 3 seed than they are like the 9 or something. Like, it's silly stuff what he's done with this roster, and he drives everything offensively. I watched the Atlanta Hawks with some people want to talk about Dyson Daniels as defensive player of the year. I watched them trap Cade Cunningham in the backcourt multiple times because he was cooking them in the first half for almost 30. And
that was the most impressive game. Or let me rephrase. That was the most impressive half, I think, that I've ever seen Cade play.
It was unreal. And it was the 3-point shooting in that particular game, but that's been better this year. And you watch the amount of times teams put 2 on the ball because that's the only way to slow him down. And I think that tells you not. And I will say, listen, you will not find somebody more critical of Cade's defense. Like, this is literally what I do, is critique this team, especially on the defense. It's neutral, at least. Like, it's neutral, which I think is okay considering the usage he has to take. And it's borderline good on the ball at times. He has really good on the ball possessions. He gets lost off the ball at times, gets ball watching, but it's neutral overall right now for somebody with a ton of usage.
Yeah, no, he is, to me. I have like a slight drop now. I had like 10 guys. Like, I had a pretty clear 10, I would say.
Sure.
Who was your other second team all NBA guy?
I mean, I love Steph Curry, and Steph Curry still does Steph Curry things sometimes. And there's nothing better than a Curry flurry in the NBA. Like, I love watching him do that. His gravity, which I spoke about the last time we did this, is incredible. And again, I don't know why per 36 ended up on my radar. To your point, it is because he's played lower total minutes than these guys, but he's averaging 27, 7, and 5 per 36. And that 27 would be 6 of the guys we've talked about on 45, 40, 93. So I still just think his gravity and what he does for that team is unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it's completely reasonable to have him there. I kind of took into account he was good for the first stretch of the season. Like, he was really good. He wasn't quite that level. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen Steph now like really hit a new level now that Jimmy Butler is there, and now that it feels like they're like a real contender. That 56-point game against Orlando was like completely laughable. It's unreal. Does not compute for me what he's capable of from time to time. But I had him third team. I had Cat for the totality of the season ahead of him.
That's fair. So
wouldn't surprise me if Steph jumps him, by the way, to be clear.
So we had our only differences first team where you had Jaren Jackson Jr., I had Donovan Mitchell, and then obviously we each had those guys second team. And then our differences second to third was I had Steph Curry, you had Karl Anthony Towns. We obviously each have those guys on our third team with 4 other names coming up.
Who is your next name?
Kevin Durant.
So I also have Kevin Durant third team. Kevin Durant, by the way, 5
really
games
close.
away.
Really close. I know.
27 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists on 53, 40, 83. And if you watch them, look, they're a bad defensive team, but he's the only one that like is remotely keeping them together out there. It feels like when I watch him.
Yeah.
Look, on some level, they do have to get dinged for being under 500.
Bad. Yep.
But like, that's the ding here, is that Kevin gets dropped to third team and not second team. I think.
I'll be honest. Like, I was looking at, he was the guy that was like, man, can I keep Cade over him? Not like, you look at their numbers and, you know, Durant's are a little bit better in terms of efficiency and scoring and all of that. But I'm like, his team with honestly probably more just individual talent is 4 games under 500. And so, and the games played situation, as you highlighted, I didn't even put him on this in our last one because I think the last one I had used 31 games played, you know, based on where we were, and he hadn't been there. So very much understanding that there's a chance he doesn't make it.
I think he has to make all NBA at least this year. When I watch him,
sorry. I mean that he doesn't make the 65 to be eligible is what I meant.
Oh yeah, that's very possible.
Yeah.
That could be like a real thing here. But again, like if they want to make the play in, like he's probably going to play every game. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of where we're at here with this group. Yeah, I mean, he's a total stud. Like his ruthless efficiency just breaks my brain every time I watch it. His ability to get to his spots from the mid range, he can get to the rim as necessary. He is just absolutely lethal. I will say that like this year, I do feel like an underrated factor with him, and really since he's been in Phoenix, honestly, I feel like the turnovers are like a little bit high since he's been in Phoenix. I guess Brooklyn, they were a little bit high too at that point. Like he was, not quite the 2 to 3 turnover per game guy now. Like he's pretty much a 3 turnover per game guy. Sometimes he will just get a little bit loose with the ball, and on this team but that's like nitpicking. Like we're nitpicking Kevin Durant. He's been incredible this season. I had him very clearly in my mix.
Yeah. And I sometimes don't end up with a lot of notes whenever I watch the Suns on Durant, because it's like we just know what he is. I'm glad you brought up the defense a little bit, because he does have like this off-ball rotation, rim protection, defensive disruption, stuff like that. I'm not saying he's like this crazy point of attack defender. I'm not saying I like considered him in the next conversation. I'm just saying like there is some defensive impact to go along with that offensive scoring punch.
Okay, who's your next name here?
I had Anthony Edwards solidly on third team as well.
I also have Anthony Edwards very solidly on third team.
Yeah,
this year.
I mean,
and 27 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. The efficiency is not quite as good this year. I also think that like the decision making continues to rear its ugly head from him from time to time. This year he is shooting 44% from the field. Part of this is that he's taken a massive jump from 3. That's why he's been able to like consistently keep his head above water in terms of a plus true shooting percentage, is that he has 40.5% from 3 on 10 3-point attempts per game. The decision making though is what holds him back to third team for me.
I agree 100%. Yeah. I mean, it's my biggest worry come playoff time with them, because teams are going to put 2 on him. Teams are going to throw us, a second, they're going to do all of the things. And it's a little bit worrisome in terms of, can he consistently make the right decisions? But he can flat out score the basketball. He's one of the best athletes in the NBA. I often make the notes, the pitch, that I think he could be an incredibly good on the ball defender. He gets lost off the ball and ball watching and stuff, but just in terms of like two-way impact, he has the potential. I wish he would show it more. That's why I kind of capped him here as third team as well. I couldn't go a whole lot higher than that because of some of the decision-making, the inconsistent defensive impact.
Okay. Who is your fourth player?
This is where it
got really hard.
Okay, that makes me feel better. So I'm going to throw out the names so I had Kyrie, J-Dub, the Cavs guys, Jaylen Brown were the names I really, really looked at. I went with Kyrie and J-Dub. So who did you go with?
I went with Garland, and I still have Jalen Williams. The other 2 names that I considered were actually the Pacers guys in Siakam and Halliburton.
So I have Siakam on this list as well. Yeah.
So Halliburton's start to the year, kind of ruled him out a little bit for me still. We'll see if that continues to be the case, but Halliburton over his last 40 games, so not like a small sample size stretch, right? Over his last 40 games is averaging 20 points, 9 assists, shooting 50, 42, 87, averaging 9 assists versus 1.8 turnovers for a 4.5 to 1 assist to turnover ratio. Like, I get it that he started poorly over his first like 17 games this year, 16 games, whatever it was. And it was a bad start. Like, undeniably, it was a really, really bad start. He has been a monster over the course of like the last 3 months, basically.
Yeah, no, I know. I think I can hear the Cavs fans screaming at me right now. I have a good friend who I know that his friends listen to the podcast. And so I'm going to get a text tomorrow. I had Garland here and I flipped him and Kyrie back and forth, back and forth. Kyrie is awesome, man. And I don't think he gets enough credit. And so, and maybe just Garland doesn't either, but Kyrie averaging, scoring at 47, 40, 92 has done a lot for that team. Had to play games, obviously a lot of games without Luka. I know that the Mavericks aren't good. They're trending in the wrong direction, but they are still 3 games over 500. Kyrie also, I think, is better than Garland on the defensive end. And so I think ultimately, I think that's ultimately the tiebreaker I gave Kyrie. I think if you put Kyrie, we've seen Kyrie, thrive as the second guy in an offense off Luka. And then also in the same offensive setting and scenario, I guess, is what Garland is in. And so then I just thought Kyrie is a little bit better defensively, and now having to carry the full load a lot this season between the Luka injury, then the Luka trade, and then the injuries to AD and Lively and Gafford. I don't know. I just, for what it's worth, the Cavs guys were next. Garland definitely was my next guy. And I struggled with Mobley too, just because of where he's going to be on our defensive conversation. But yeah, I ended up with those guys. I struggle with J-Dub too. At times I feel like I overrate him, Sam.
It's been rough offensively for a little stretch here. For what it's worth.
I was like, okay, if I'm going to bring Mobley down because I think the offense isn't near the same level as all these other guys, how much better is it than J-Dub's when J-Dub's defense isn't quite as good as Mobley's? And so I was like, okay, well, why am I so comfortable having J-Dub over? This is the part where I had fun conversations with myself.
For what it's worth, I think there's a big difference between Williams and Mobley on offense. Yeah, and then that's why I have Williams ahead.
Yeah. There. So J-Dub was my 15th guy, and I just kind of struggled with it because, again, he does some nice things offensively, but I find myself wanting more. We're about to talk about him with defense as well, at least for my list. So, but that's what I ended up on. This was one where I would love to just sit down with you and Timph and 4 or 5 people on a call and just hash it all out, get all of the inputs from everybody, because it gets really interesting. Our listeners as well, please DM me, don't yell at me, but I would love to get your guys' input as well. So I struggled with the final 2.
No, 100%. These were the 2 spots that I really struggled with. The name I ended up considering more than Mobley was Siakam. Honestly,
he's been really good. He's been really good.
And it was him, it was those 3. It was Mobley, Williams, Siakam, and then it was Kyrie, Garland. For that, look, I know that it's not guards, but when you're playing kind of, the same position, you're trying to compare and contrast the 2, and yeah, you could end up with both Mobley and Williams if you want to. You could end up in a certain way, but I think Garland being able to drive Cleveland's offense in the way that he has this year has been really, really critical for Cleveland. They needed a real boost on offense. And Kenny Atkinson with his spacing principles and everything has really, really helped there as well. But I think Garland getting back from that jaw injury last year and really playing at the level that he has played at, I think is the guy that's truly deserving.
I agree. I think as you say that, I think what I realized is I should have just put him and Kyrie. I think I would have felt good about that. But then I went to the defensive thing is okay, people yell at us for not prioritizing defense. So then I'm not leaving, then how do I leave J-Dub off? And then it's okay, can I put Garland and Mobley? Can we have 3 Cavs on the top 50? I went round and round with it. And I think to what you just said, as I look at it now, I'm I don't think I can have Kyrie and I almost pitted Kyrie and Garland against each other. And then I pitted J-Dub and Mobley against each other. And unfortunately, both Cavs ended just off. So Cavs fans are going to hate me. They're going to yell at me. I'll have to live with it.
Okay. So to recap for me, I had Jokic, Tatum, Shea, Giannis, Jaren Jackson, first team, Mitchell, Brunson, Towns, Cunningham, LeBron, second team, J-Dub, Curry, Garland, Durant, Ant, third team.
Yep.
Those are your all NBA picks for me. Bryce, who did you have?
Yeah, so I had Jokic, SGA, Giannis, Tatum, Mitchell, first team, Jaren Jackson Jr., Brunson, Curry, LeBron, Cade, second team, Durant, Edwards, Cat, solidly third team. And then I ended up with Kyrie and J-Dub over the Cavs guys with shout out to Jaylen Brown, Pascal Siakam for sure in that conversation and debate.
Okay. Before we move to all defense and defensive player of the year, shout out to the good folks over at NUTRAFOL. This year, there's nothing holding you back from loving your hair again. Hair is so much more than what you see on the surface. It's a reflection of what's happening inside. Let NUTRAFOL target the key root causes of your thinning hair and help you go stronger, healthier strands from within. NUTRAFOL is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with NUTRAFOL. Thinning hair is different for men and women, so a one-size-fits-all approach to hair growth does not cut it. NUTRAFOL has multiple formulas for men and women that are tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you can get what you need. It is physician formulated with 100% drug-free ingredients. NUTRAFOL is supporting healthy hair growth from within by targeting key root causes. Start your hair growth journey with NUTRAFOL for a limited time. NUTRAFOL is offering Game Theory listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to NUTRAFOL.com and enter that promo code Game Theory. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend NUTRAFOL for healthier hair. NUTRAFOL.com, spelled NUTRAFOL.com, promo code Game Theory. That's NUTRAFOL.com, promo code Game Theory. Okay, all defense time, Bryce.
Yep.
I have Jaren Jackson as my defensive player of the year to this point.
Yep.
The Memphis Grizzlies are, I believe, 7th in defense right now, league-wide. Jaren Jackson, as you mentioned earlier this year, has been a monster in terms of his stock numbers. He is a great help defender. He flies around all over the court. He is switchable 1 through 5. There's just not really a hole in Jaren Jackson's game on that defensive end of the court. And that's kind of what makes him special. And oh, by the way, against top 10 teams in the league, the Grizzlies have the #5 defense in the NBA. So I've just been remarkably impressed with Jaren Jackson this year. He has been fantastic.
Yeah, I went with Jaren Jackson Jr. as well. I found myself trying to find ways to make it Evan Mobley. And I don't know that I ever fell into something that I felt fully on board with. I did find myself, it's funny with both of these guys, as I look back through my notes, I have a lot of offensive notes about both. And I think that's because I know they're both really good defenders. So I kind of watch the other end of the court. You know, coming into the year, the biggest question around Mobley was, would he, be able to shoot? What would the offense look like? And so I have a ton of notes on his offense. Jaren was, okay, he took this role offensively last year. What's that going to look like this year with Bane back and Jaw back and all of that? I'm very fascinated to watch the final 20 games of the season and to really lock in on this, because ultimately it didn't matter as much to really nitpick between the two, because we all knew Wemby was going to win. And then you just had these two to fill out your first team after him. Now I want to find out, like, okay, I always say Jaren is the best off-ball defensive help defender. How close is Mobley in regards to that? How would I compare them as on-ball switchable defenders at the point of attack? How much does Mobley's better defensive rebounding than Jaren Jackson Jr. matter to me? How much does Jaren Jackson Jr.'s fouling compared to Mobley's fouling matter and impact the production and availability on that end? So I find myself staying here right now, but being interested to really track that the final 20 to see if my answer will change by the end of the season.
I think my answers to those right now are that I think Jaren is a bit better as a help rotational rim protector.
I think I agree with that.
I think Jaren is a bit better in terms of switchability, actually.
So that's the one I'm most interested, because I think I'm a little bit lower than you on Jaren at the point of attack. So I'm wondering if I actually find that I like Mobley better as this switchable, versatile point of attack defender. That's the part that I think Mobley can catch him for me.
This is the point where, to me, it's closest. I think Jaren does better on wings. I think Mobley actually does slightly better on like guards who are quicker and
Like
like
a
he has
true
to like
ball
stay on his
screen
toes.
switch, stay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's probably fair.
I think I would give Jackson just the slightest edge there personally. Uh, in terms of like overall like help defense and communication, I think I would give Jaren an edge there too. That's kind of why I just see him as like a slight upgrade above Mobley, kind of across the board, while also now having Mobley at number 2. I for what it's worth, I have Mobley at second for Defensive Player of the Year right now as well.
I do. And I do think this is where the rebounding, and I know we've had this conversation, especially around Cat. For me, defensive rebounding does matter when we're talking about defensive specific impact. And the fact that Jaren struggles a little bit in regards to that and Mobley is better, I do think is something that at least should be discussed or brought up in regards to Mobley. So I don't think maybe when you're talking other conversations, it's as big of a conversation, but specifically when we're talking DPOY or all defensive teams, finishing a possession with the rebound is an important part of defense. And so I do think it's at least something to bring up if you want to make the argument for Mobley, who I solidly had as number 2.
Yeah, and Mobley's outstanding on that end. He is really light on his feet. He is super active as a help defender. He is everywhere across the board defensively. Like I've no beef with him on defense. I think he's absolutely fantastic. It is for me really just that I think Jaren is just like a slight level ahead on everything except the rebounding, which is a good call on your part.
I agree. All I'm saying is I'm really interested to watch it a little bit closer now to see if my mind has changed, or it may swing even stronger. Like, oh no, I think Jaren's just a touch better. So I'm interested to track it the rest of the year.
Okay. Who do you have at number 3 for Defensive Player of the Year?
Amin.
I have Amen Thompson as well. He is just
he's disrupted everything. Yeah.
Every single thing. He is a havoc on-ball defender. He is a havoc off-ball defender. His gap control in help defense, the way that he is capable of just like completely cutting off gaps with his athleticism, teams are like worried to pass in his direction
100%.
because of how athletic he is. Like it's a bigger radius that they're worried about. Like Dyson Daniels is like a pickpocket. Like he's an incredible, unbelievable steals guy. I think that like Amen cuts off more of the court than what Dyson does in help defense and team defense. I do have Dyson very high in Defensive Player of the Year as well. Like I have him in my top 5, but I think Amen, with his ability to guard on the ball, his ability to switch up and down the lineup, not just like I think Dyson does really well with guards and wings. Amen can guard bigs as well as guards and wings. I think he's a little bit more switchable. I really truly think that Amen is just the best perimeter defender in the NBA right now.
We've talked about this before in terms of on the defensive end, can you make the offense change their decision making? You know, we'll talk about Rudy Gobert a little bit, at least for me. Amen being able to do that as a wing defender is incredible, because here's the thing. If you don't know where he's at when you go into a mid-range jumper, he's going to block the shot from behind you or a passing lane. And he is this perfect intersection of disruption, but also being solid. He will guard you at the point of attack and give his chest and cut you off and contest a mid-range jumper. And he's so long and athletic that it's really hard to score over him. And so he's been insanely impressive to me. And as I mentioned earlier, especially with my first team, the 5 guys I went with, I feel like are 5 guys that have crazy versatility in what they do. They're not just disruptive. They're not just on ball. They're also off ball. And Amin is the best of the 3 names I'm going to finish up with my first team.
Okay. Who are your last 2 names here for first team?
So I went J-Dub and Tumani Kamara.
Okay. So we have 2 different names.
This
is fun.
Yes.
Give me your pitches for J-Dub and Tumani Kamara.
I mean, so my thing with J-Dub is, and I've struggled with this all year.
To be clear, I have both of them on second team. I
just
want to be honest.
I'm gonna spoil. I'm gonna have 2 Thunder on my list because they deserve it. And we've had this conversation about the Thunder and all of that. Like, we don't need to get into it. It's the versatility I talked about. It's the on-ball ability of J-Dub, the matchups he can take, along with the off-ball being able to be a helper, his size, his strength, his length, his disruption, being able to do all of that. Like I just said, if I was picking a team to defend, he's a guy I would choose a little bit earlier than some of the other names on my list because of that overall versatility. And then, like, this may be a little bit too much for Tumani, but man, he deserves the credit right now. He has been the guy I've been pitching him like just as a guy I liked for a while. I took some crap from somebody in the NBA space after our last one for not going ahead and throwing him all NBA defense. And it's a lot of the same stuff. He takes all the matchups. He has versatility in those matchups. He does it off the ball. He's disruptive, all of those things. I feel good about what those guys do versatility wise. I'm fascinated to see your other. You spoiled it with Daniels. I'm fascinated to hear your other name.
I've Lou Dort. Yeah,
Okay,
it's not a complicated one.
Okay,
like,
so you yeah.
The more I watch the Thunder, the more I do think that like having Lou be like the best one-on-one defender in the NBA, does key a lot for them. I think that he is not as important to their scheme as like the big, but neither of their bigs are eligible. Like Chet and Hartenstein are gone. Like
how hard would this be if they were? This would be impossible.
If they were both here, I would genuinely consider having 4 Thunder guys all defense.
Unreal.
They're so good on that end.
Yeah.
The Thunder are insane, but it makes it easier. It clears it out a little bit for J-Dub and for Dort. I'm a little bit worried that teams are or that voters who by and large are not as detail oriented.
Are they going to screw these guys over by giving Shea a bunch of votes that he shouldn't get?
That's my worry.
Oh my gosh. Hey, if they end up with none, or if Shea ends up, like, I have nothing against Shea. I love him. But if they end up with none or Shea on this list because people voted for Shea and not these two, either one of these two guys, if you want to have Dort more than J-Dub, I'm fine. I'm cool with it because I'm with you. I think he's the best point of attack defender in the league. I'm actually going to be pissed. And I don't usually care about this stuff, but that would be super, super annoying, Sam.
So here's my pitch for Dyson. Dyson is the best like turnover guy in the NBA right now.
I would agree
in terms of like getting steals.
I would agree with that.
He's also quite good, I think, at like cutting off drives and being able to stop like momentum and walling up. I think off the ball, he is a gambler, like for sure. And that is like a real like negative, he gets home a decent amount of the time, but like it can be a negative for sure, where he like really gambles and takes himself out of position. And like that game against Cade was kind of an eye opener in terms of just like Cade cooked him up and down the court, frankly. It was one of the more impressive games I've seen from an offensive player this year. I think that the ability to transition defense to offense, which is a big selling point for a men here as well, as well as the ability to consistently cut off drives, contest, be physical, one-on-one. I went with Dyson. I have Kamara, and then I also have another guy kind of in this mix here that I think are very, very close.
So what I've struggled with Daniels, and it's not just the Cade matchup, but it's in 2 Cade games where I've questioned elite on-ball point of attack defense. I'm not saying he's not good, Sam. Please do not mince my words. I think he's elite disruption. There's no question there. I question if he's elite on the ball point of attack. And again, it's not just Cade. As I went back through my notes, there was one against Ant as well, where in my notes, I questioned his on-ball point of attack being elite. And so that's where I end up with Dyson on second team and not first team. And maybe where I'm a little different than others is I don't know that that's at the level that I don't know that I agree that it's on that same level as maybe what others do, even though the disruption is incredible. I also want to say, I think Dyson has been really good offensively. I again walk away from Hawks games going, this dude's cutting and movement and all of that on the offensive end is playing off perfectly next to Trae Young. That was an incredible trade, and that's a great combination for him to be in. But the defensive disruption is unreal, and I'm glad you brought the up defense to offense that he causes, and Amin is obviously elite as it also.
Second team, I have Kamara here. Do you have Dyson here?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Okay, and you have Dort here, I would imagine.
I have Dyson and Dort here. So we have the same 7 right now. I have Dort and Daniel's second team. You have J-Dub and Tamani.
So the other guy I really strongly considered for first team is Zubats.
Sure.
Zubats to me, look, honestly, I think Chris Dunn is probably their best defender, but Chris Dunn is ineligible by virtue of not having played enough games with 20 plus minutes, which is also a criteria here.
Oh, so I had Dunn on second team. I missed a couple names here on second team because Asar's not eligible either. I didn't realize until
Asar is also not eligible.
So for Pistons fans, he missed too many games to start. Like he literally can play the final 21 and he's short. And for what it's worth, I would have had Asar on second team based off how he's been playing recently. Would you have? If
I also would too.
Yeah, he's been. And you talk about turning defense into offense. He does it at a high level. I did not take that into account with Chris Dunn, and I did have him on second team over Zubats. But interesting.
So Zubats is like their centerpiece defensively. Like he controls so much. He's really good in drop. He's a really good overall defender in terms of being able to keep guys out of the paint. Like he's so big and strong and physical and just takes up so much space on the interior there that it's really, really hard to deal with him. Moves a little bit better than what you think he does. Sure. Obviously ends every single possession with a defensive rebound. He's just been really, really impressive to me this year. Zubats has been awesome on that end.
Always in the right position, yep. And it gives him the opportunity to contest everything. And then, like you say, because he's in the right position, then he can finish off possessions with the defensive rebound. So I would have him here as well, considering that Dunn's not eligible, because it would have been one of those two guys.
Okay. The last two came down to 3 names for me.
Okay.
3 longtime stalwarts of all defense.
Yep.
Bam Adebayo, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Rudy Gobert.
Yep. So for what it's worth, I have those 3 names, and the third one is my first guy off the list. So go ahead.
Yes, that is the way it is for me. I have Bam and Rudy.
I did as well.
And I feel bad about it because Giannis has been incredible this season.
Yep.
Again, though, for me, the reason I did this is Bam has played 300 more minutes or so, 350 more minutes, something like that. And honestly, with Rudy, I had Rudy just like a small step above these guys. I think Rudy's at 250, 300 more minutes than Giannis. But I think Rudy bringing Minnesota back to a top 7 defense in the league somehow, when Mike Conley has really struggled on that end, when Julius Randle has been a total sieve on that end, frankly, when he's been out there. They've had a lot of different guys coming in and out of the lineup. Obviously now, I will say this, we totally buy into Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and those 2 are the only guys that have played all 61 games this year for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So this isn't just Rudy alone, but I think Rudy's the biggest piece of it, if we're being honest. And then the other guy here is Jalen Clark. Jalen Clark coming in the last 20 or so games.
Good.
It's been really, really fun. He's nowhere near this thing because he's only played 20 games, but he really helps them on defense a lot.
Yeah. No, I mentioned it earlier. Gobert changes the decision-making process of offensive players. It's a little less versatility, and that's where I did have to go away from that a little bit with my second team, and where I think people could say, well, if that's what you really want to buy into, Giannis obviously has more of that. I think you could argue even Draymond has more of that. There's a couple other names I want to throw at you when we get done with this conversation, but Gobert changes the decision-making, and then Bam obviously offers that at a lot. And I think because I have to remind myself sometimes it has nothing to do with offense. It does not matter that Bam has struggled offensively and anything else.
Yeah.
He's still one of the most versatile defenders in the league in the way he can play different schemes and help his team out. So I also ended those 2 with Giannis. I really wanted to find a way to put him on, and I just couldn't, at least as it stands right now.
Again, the Miami Heat have Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, and Terry Rozier has played 1,400 minutes this year, and they still have a defense that is 12th in the NBA right now. Haywood Highsmith is great, don't get me wrong, but that's all Bam. You know what I mean? That's all Bam being able to do that. Okay. Let's go to Rookie of the Year.
Real quick, Nimhard and Bilal Koulibaly were just names that like I didn't really consider, but were just interesting names. So I just throw them out real fast. We can go ahead and go to
names. Names I definitely thought about, like those two, Draymond Green, Derek White.
Yep.
I still have Dylan Brooks on my list here.
Yep.
Honestly, like there are a lot of different guys that you could consider for this thing. Absolutely. I did go with who I went with, but yeah, like there are a lot of names that you could strongly consider here. Nemhard and Koulibaly also being two of them.
Yep. Okay. I just wanted to get those names out. So,
okay. Rookie of the Year. I think there's just a very abundantly obvious answer to this.
I still have Wells. Are you going to go Castle?
The answer is Jalen Wells.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to make the pitch for Castle.
No, I do not understand at all why this is a conversation right now for people.
It's not.
Is it just that he went in the second round?
I don't know. Listen, I tried to make my list just off the dome to start, and then I started looking at other things. I very easily and quickly typed in Jalen Wells' name to start at the top of my list. Like I had no hesitation, and nowhere did I consider changing it. He has
started 55 games for a top 4 team in the West, shooting 45, 38, 82, taking on the toughest defensive assignments every single night. By the way, do I have an interview coming up with Jalen Wells that you guys will get to see on the channel? Yes, I do. We're going to break down tape with Jalen Wells on the channel. He's been awesome this year, and he talks through his whole process. That'll come later this week. I've already recorded it. It's really, really fun. But I don't understand. Like, I love Steph Castle. Steph Castle's had like long stretches where he can't really make shots. And oh, by the way, one of those long stretches has not been recently. Castle's been quite good since January 25th. He's averaging 16 points, shooting 44, 32, 78 with 4 rebounds and 3 assists. Yeah, great. He's also had like 20 game stretches where he was on the bench where like he wasn't playing super well. Zach Ricochet is another name that I will hear. 14 points per game since January 30th, shooting 51, 48, 73. He has also had a lot of like long stretches where he can't hit the broadside of a barn with his jumper. The level to which Jalen Wells has been by far the most consistent of these guys. Wells has also been, in my opinion, better on defense than Castle and Ricochet this year. And I know that's probably controversial with Castle, but I think Wells has been more consistent and has been better for a better team on defense this year. And he's been a critical part of that defense beyond Jaren Jackson. It baffles me that this is a conversation. This is an easy vote to me. This isn't even remotely difficult. Wells has been by far the most consistent guy. He's been the good player on the good team all year.
Yeah,
and this is to take nothing away from Castle. It is to credit Jalen Wells, who has been awesome this year.
I'm in. Like my thing is, I sometimes get frustrated. Listen, Chris, who you know, him and I will debate this, like rookies winning, what's harder, being a part of it, whatever. The numbers are close enough with these two that the fact that Wells is playing on a good team, taking all the matchups, plays a extra minute, and like there's just nothing that I can't point to anything with Steph Castle that makes me go in his direction. I guess to your point where everybody seems to, I hate to say that it's like easy because I don't want to discredit people's opinion, but Wells is better from the field. He's better from 3. He's better from the free throw line. More rebounds. I guess the argument would be Castle creates a little bit better. But
Jalen Wells has a 102 true shooting percentage plus, so he's 2% above league average. Steph Castle's true shooting percentage is 12% below league average right now.
Well, and he like does it in big moments. Like every Grizzlies game I watch, I walk away like this dude is unbelievable. And like it just pisses me off. Like I want to not admit it because I didn't have him in my top 30 for the big board.
Yeah, neither did I.
So like it makes me mad that I was so wrong. But you can't deny how good he's been. I am with you that I think for me, it was very easily to type Jalen Wells into the number 1 slot and then start going from there and not really look back at it or consider changing it. Even as I look at total minutes played, points, all of the stuff I tried to do to prepare, it was Jalen Wells from the start to the finish.
By the way, do you know who I have at number 2?
Steph Castle.
I have Zach Edey.
Oh, okay.
Zach Edey is averaging 9 and 8. Do you know who is shooting the best mark from 3 right now among lottery picks?
Who?
Zach Edey, shooting 35% from 3. No other lottery pick is shooting 35% from 3 right now. Yeah, he's doing it on like an attempt per game, whatever. But like, he's also a good rim protector. He's also making an impact on defense. Like, I at least think that like Castle versus Edey is a conversation. Like, I'll hear that out. Like, if you want to have Castle ahead of Edey,
I do for what I do for what it's worth.
But again, Zach Edey is a starter on a top 4 team in the West.
Yeah,
right now, he's been awesome.
Yep, I have him 2-3. I have Castle 2. I have Edey 3. I'm with you. Castle has played a lot more minutes than Edey, but Edey has played, like you said, on a much better team. He's been productive, showing off the floor spacing a little bit. I think I'm still a little bit lower than some on him in general, but to me, the 1, 2, 3 was pretty easy to plug in. I think number 4 also was pretty easy, and then it got interesting after that. So,
yep. Castle is 3 for me. Ricochet is 4 for me. Ricochet's run recently, I think, is deserving of a lot of credit. 14 points on 51, 48, 73. Like I said, since January 30th, has been just a really effective basketball player for the Atlanta Hawks.
This is going to sound really dumb, but if he consistently makes shots, he's going to be really, really good, Sam. And like the inconsistency of the jumper was a concern before the draft. It's been a concern this year, but like I watch him play and it's like, holy, like everything he does is really impressive. It doesn't always go in the basket, but he relocates. He no dip 3-point attempts. He drives both directions. He tries to finish with his left. I think he's going to be a good defender, above neutral defender. Like
he'll be a good defender.
Good defender. Yeah. He's shown off some athleticism. Like he has a chance to be really, really good if he can just consistently put the ball in the basket.
Yep. Okay. Who did you have as your 5th all rookie player?
I went Sar, but I don't like it. I didn't like it.
So I do have Khalil Ware here now.
That's who I almost put over him. He's been really good in his minutes. Khalil Ware has. Yeah. There's no question. I'm not mad at it at all.
Yeah, and it's just a smaller sample for sure than what Sar has played this year. I just think he's been better in the minutes than what Sar has been, frankly.
I think that's probably right. I think that's probably fair.
He's averaging 9 points, 6 rebounds, shooting 54, 35, 74 from the field. But if those numbers are honestly dragged down a good amount by the fact that like early in the season, he was getting not really in the rotation. Like he would get 6 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 9 minutes, 9 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute. Like there's a lot of that. And then right around Christmas, he entered the rotation. And since then, he's averaging 11 points, 9 rebounds, shooting 54, 36, 76. I still think that it is very clear to me that Jalen Wells is ahead of him. And by the way, if you look at the betting odds right now for Rookie of the Year,
no way.
Khalil Ware is ahead of Jalen Wells somehow.
That's insane.
It's been 28 games and he's been really, really good. It's been like half of his season. We have a full season of Jalen Wells being really good at basketball. It is baffling to me. It's completely baffling to me that people are just underrating Jalen Wells across the board. Okay. Second team all rookie. I do have Sar. I would imagine that you have Khalil Ware.
Yep. First name. I honestly really considered switching them. I just didn't quite do it. So.
Okay. I have Yves Missy here.
Same.
The defense has been rough for Missy, but like just being able to play as much as he has been really useful for New Orleans. I have Donovan Clingan here.
Yeah. Yep.
I have Tristan Da Silva here for having to take on 1 million minutes for that Orlando situation.
Yep.
And I still have Jared McCain's 28 games or whatever here because they're still. Look, my guess is that he will fall off, but I still had McCain in terms of like actual impact here.
I thought about it. I didn't do it. I didn't know how we felt about that. So I'll throw a couple other names. Bub is a guy we've talked about quite a bit. How much did you consider Isaiah Collier in the run he's been on?
A bit. I still don't think he has like an effective way to score, which is an issue for a lead guard. I had Bub ahead of Collier pretty comfortably.
Yeah. So Klingon definitely, De Silva definitely, and then I struggled with the final spot, and that is where I consider doing the same thing with Jared McCain. I find myself liking a lot of these guys, not loving them. You know, Quentin Post has put in some good minutes for the Warriors. Dillingham and Terrence
300 minutes for Post.
No,
yeah.
I'm not saying I like fully consider, but like Dillingham and Terrence Shannon Jr. are doing stuff now. Connect has, like, in fairness, Connect has been in the rotation in some capacity all year for the Lakers. Ryan Dunn was a guy that, I had on second team the last 2 times, but he seems like he's fallen out of the rotation for the Suns. So I struggled with like how to value what. Maybe that's where the McCain thing is just like, who's had a better 28 game stretch than him? And maybe that was more impactful than anything that other guys have done over a 40 or 45 game sample when we start talking about these other names.
Yeah, no, I generally agree with you across the board on that. I don't have much else to say on second team all rookie. It's a bad second team all rookie year this year.
Agreed. 100%.
Okay. Coach of the year.
2 names.
Kenny Atkinson is 1.
And JB.
And JB is 3 for me for what it's worth. I still have Dagnall at 2.
Okay.
But like I will hear I have all the time in the world for JB in this category.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Dagnall is my 3. I think Atkinson, with what they've done there, the improvement that he made with that team, I think he is probably going to win it and should win it. But we highlighted the improvement earlier from the Detroit Pistons. And I don't think I'm like pushing a narrative here because this is the team I cover.
No, like, totally reasonable to have him at 2.
I think Cade is the biggest reason for growth. Maybe it's just because of how bad it was last year, but perhaps the biggest difference in this Pistons team between last season and this season is coaching. Even the simple things of end of quarter substitution, offense, defense stuff, like, hey, there's 15 seconds on the clock and there's a dead ball. Maybe we should put Asar Thompson back on the floor for 1 possession to play defense. Or the reverse, let's put Cade Cunningham on the floor to play offense. The defense is crazy. How many good defenders are on that team? Asar, and I think Isaiah Stewart is a good defender. He's underrated, but Isaiah Stewart is unquestionably a positive defender.
Yeah, and like one name we didn't mention on all rookie is Ron Holland. I think Holland's been pretty good on defense this year.
Pretty good. They're 11th in defensive rating right now. And to me, my understanding of that coaching staff, that's all credit to JB Bickerstaff. So I have him second. Maybe this is a little bit of like pushing my, the Pistons thing, but Dagnall is definitely 3rd. So
no, not at all. Jamal Mosley's kind of fallen off of this.
Yeah,
because
I was pushing that for a while, but what about JJ? Does JJ need some love at this point?
Definitely in my top 5 right now. JJ Redick is 100% in my top 5 for coach of the year. He has been tremendous. He's had to deal with a lot of roster turnover throughout the course of the year, integrating Dorian Finney-Smith, integrating Luka, and having to change your entire scheme mid-season because Luka, is his own animal. That is a really, really impressive job that I think that JJ Redick has done. Ty Lue, another name that I think is deserving of credit within this conversation.
He was in my top 5 also. My top 5 was Atkinson, Bickerstaff, Dagnall, Lue, and Redick. So
yeah, that sounds right to me in terms of the top 5 for sure. Okay. Most improved player.
I had Trey Murphy.
I have Trey Murphy on my list.
Christian Brown.
I don't have Christian Brown on my list.
I think he's had an awesome year. And I also have Ty Jerome.
Yeah, so I have Norman Powell at 1, but Powell can only miss 3 more games this year. I have Trey Murphy at 2.
Okay.
And I Trey Murphy can only miss 2 more games this year, so that's a
Oh,
problem.
I didn't realize both of those guys were that close. Jesus.
Yeah. And then I have Ty Jerome.
Yeah.
But I will say I got yelled at last time for having Cade here. I think there's a very real case to have Cade here.
Sure. Some other names I threw out.
He is going to make second team all NBA, Bryce.
I know.
We can't say he hasn't gotten drastically better.
I mean, it's only because Malik Beasley provides. No, I'm joking. I am joking. Please do not aggregate that. Please do not aggregate that. It also adds a lot to the Pistons cap space this offseason. Has been a nice conversation. He truly has. You made me think about it. You truly did. Because like my initial reaction was my initial reaction. Everybody saw it. And then I had to stop and think like, I do think he's been better defensively. I do think his decision-making has been better. Even the turnovers are still bad. I think he's drastically improved his ball screen nuance, the way he uses and manipulates ball screens. And I think his handle may be the most underrated improvement. He loses defenders with his cross between the legs, whatever, in a way that he was not doing his first 3 years. And then obviously the 3-point shooting as well. So I understand it. It's just like, I still don't like it. Second team all NBA is enough. He doesn't need most improved player. Some other names I had, like Tamani Kamara. I had Dyson Daniels. I think he's been awesome. Santi. Does Aaron Wiggins, like, has he had enough of a jump here?
Yeah, I would agree. I'd be fine with Wiggins here.
And then the other name was like Shaden Sharp. I don't know that the jump. I don't think the raw numbers were a ton, but he's been playing really well recently. I feel like on the offensive end. Yeah, it was just the field goal percentage, I guess, that was better. The overall field goal percentage. Yeah. So probably not as much of an argument for him.
Yeah. No, but like we haven't talked about Norm Powell yet, who I have at number 1. I mean,
Go ahead.
Norm Powell just continuing to take this leap to where he was like a borderline all-star this year, averaging 24 points per game while shooting 50, 43, 82, being like a primary scorer. Look, my guess on this, because he's still dealing with this like knee thing, he's day to day. Sometimes he goes, sometimes he doesn't. Like, I'm guessing he's not going to be eligible for this. So I know that like what our rules say is that like we should, consider that, but I kind of just wanted to give him love at the end of the day. Like, he's just been so good this year.
Yeah, no, he has been. And listen, the Clippers is a team I really enjoy watching play, and he's a huge part of that. I watched him play the Pistons the other night, and Asar kind of, took Harden out of the game because he's so good defensively, and they really missed having Norm Powell. And obviously Kawhi would have helped also. But what he does in terms of his scoring gravity, playing off of Harden, play finisher in those, he's been incredible. So I completely get it.
All right. I think that's all we got, Bryce, because I'm not getting into clutch player of the year.
6th man of the year.
Oh, we do have 6th man of the year. I lied. Okay. I have a men at number 1.
He doesn't count.
I mean, he definitely counts. He is 100% still eligible for this award. And oh, by the way, it's a question like what, or no, he's actually not eligible. I thought he was still below the halfway mark because you have to start under half your games. I lied. So a man is not eligible for this. This makes my life easier. Okay. So I have Naz Reid here at number 1 then.
What's the rule? It's half the games.
You have to start under half of the games.
And he's not going to come close to that. Yeah,
Naz is not capable of starting half of their games.
Okay. So it's not. He's been awesome.
Naz Reid has been fantastic. This run he's been on since he's hit the starting lineup has been amazing. I'm assuming that that's going to change now, that he will be out of the starting lineup when Randall comes back. We'll see. But he's averaging 15 points, 6 rebounds, 47, 40, 81. He's a better defender than what Peyton Pritchard is to me. He's a better defender than what Malik Beasley is to me. And this is saying that I don't even I don't love Naz Reid's defense, but I think the size, the rebounding, the physicality gives him a little bit of an edge for me up against those two. And I have Beasley at 2.
I mean, DeAndre Hunter, is he?
Yeah, Hunter's in the mix here too.
Is this a games played overall award? I know sometimes I get confused on those because he's only at 44.
Yeah, so it's going to be pretty close whether or not
Okay.
he's going to be eligible.
So those are all the names for me as well. So Nas, DeAndre Hunter, if he's eligible, Malik Beasley has been incredible. Peyton Pritchard, obviously. And honestly,
Hunter can only miss one more game.
Yeah.
Looking at it here.
Yeah. And then Ty Jerome also with the Cavs has been really, really good.
Yeah, Ty Jerome was, now that Amen is gone, Ty was 4th on my list. I've Pritchard 3rd here. Pritchard over his last 32 games, so like half the season now. Pritchard obviously started like enormously hot, and he's the clear favorite to win this thing right now. Over his last 32, he's averaging 12 points a game on 46, 39, 83. So like really good player, really good numbers, but I don't know. Like he's not a great defender, and he's like he fights on defense, but he's just small, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I'd Beasley ahead of him this time.
I do as well. If we're taking Hunter out, yeah, I would have Nas, Beasley, Pritchard, Jerome, and then because we got yelled at last time, Santi Aldama is the next name on my list as well. Having a really solid season, scoring the basketball, 50, 43 from the field, rebounds the ball, good assist to turnover ratio. So wanted to make sure I mentioned him because last time he was on my list, but we kind of get to the end of this. Sometimes we don't get the nuance of our list as much, but he was the other name I at least wanted to drop was Santi Aldama.
Yeah. Okay. That's what we got here. Executive of the year, Rob Pelinka should win this award because he got Luka Doncic.
Sounds fair sounds right to me.
The reality of the situation. Sorry to everybody else, but
if you trade for a 25-year-old top 5 or 3 to 5 player in the NBA, you win. New rule.
And to have the balls to be like, I can't give up that extra first rounder. I just can't do it. I'm sorry.
He's unhealthy. He's injury risk. We're taking the risk, Nico. The Lakers are taking the risk.
Yeah. So, okay. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. We're not doing trivia tonight because I want to go watch the Oscars.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. At Motor City Hoops on Twitter, at Motor City Hoops on Blue Sky, Motor City Hoops Substack. Done some video stuff. So if you're interested in what makes Cade really good, I have a video breakdown over there. If you're interested in what makes Asar Thompson good, I have a video breakdown. If you're interested in what makes Malik Beasley a good 3-point shooter, that's dropping Monday at noon. So lots of stuff over there, just general basketball stuff, other NBA teams when they play the Pistons. Otherwise, Game Theory Podcast with the Sam Vecenie.
Okay. So top 100 board for the 2025 NBA draft dropped last Thursday. So go read that at The Athletic. Go to my Letterboxd where I released my top 40 movies of 2024. That was a really, really fun one. I enjoyed that. I watched, I think, 125 2024 releases this year. So got through, pretty good portion of them and just, ranked my top 40. Number 40 is Roadhouse with Jake Gyllenhaal. I liked Roadhouse. It was real stupid. I had a good time. There are other good movies in there too, like Red Rooms and The Brutalist and Nickel Boys and other things, right? That aren't just like me picks where I love things because I'm ridiculous. So go over there, read my Letterboxd. What else do I have? I have nothing else. We'll be back on Thursday. We're going to do like a mailbaggy kind of thing on the NBA draft and NBA. We're going to kind of answer some questions here and there. So send them off to the Twitter feed. Send them off to the Gmail, Sam Vecenie podcast at gmail.com. Where else? Send them to Blue Sky. Definitely send them to Blue Sky. I will see them for sure if you send them to Blue Sky. So that's probably the better idea. Speaking of which, GMAC will murder me if I don't put this up. Subscribe to all the Game Theory social channels. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, wherever you are. Go follow me over on TikTok and Instagram, by the way. I'm posting more over on TikTok and Instagram. Like you will actually get some content now. So go follow all of those things. Until next time, we'll talk soon.